to Carbondale. And that's an area where there's also a great deal of environmental activism that would be in sync with much of what we were just hearing with regard to extractions and violating the land. But also in Carbondale, they hearken back to the Peace Coalition of Southern Illinois. And today they had a parade right through their small city, campaigning with a no to NATO and a yes to trying to develop grassroots peacemaking. So David, could you help us to view that?
I'm going to share screen and get that video, and you all tell me if it doesn't look good or sound good.
You want me to start? My name is Georgianne Hartzog. I am a member of the Peace Coalition of Southern Illinois, and we're very proud to say it was established here in Carbondale in the Southern Illinois area in 1983. So we're going to celebrate our 40th anniversary this year. It was truly a coalition back in the days when it started, especially because of Ronald Reagan and the problems with developing nuclear weapons and threatening nuclear war with the still existing Soviet Union. And it feels like we just keep going in circles. We had some successes in those days, and then we had big wars come around, and we feel as if the success has been very difficult since then in the peace movement. But we're very proud and happy to be part of what exists around the world, and especially to have joined World Beyond War. We were blessed to have David Swanson come do a Margie Parker Teach-In for Peace for us back in, I think, about 2018. And that alerted us to the work of World Beyond War. And so we have been affiliated with them since then. Certainly over the years, we did human rights work, anti-militarism work, justice work, and part of a very large coalition of groups and people struggling to keep us from going to war in Iraq, struggling to have us recognize the damages of militarism. And so what we carry on today is a monthly Peace and Justice Vigil on the first Saturday of the month. In the name of one of our most important and founding members, Margie Parker, we established the Margie Parker Teach-In for Peace, and we've dealt with issues of torture, Guantanamo, militarism, drones, different topics over the years, including David's. We have a periodic newsletter that we put out. We have been involved since the year 2000 with Pastors for Peace Friendship Caravan to Cuba, sponsoring an event every year. And in our small way and in our aging population, we try to carry on with that. What we'd like to share with you today is a presentation that Rich Whitney, one of our important members, most active members, has prepared, and I'm going to let him introduce it and tell you what he's going to provide to you. And after that's over, we're going to hear some peace music from one of our dear supporters, Candy Davis. So thank you so much for letting us be a part of this event.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rich Whitney with the Peace Coalition of Southern Illinois and the brand new chapter of the World Beyond War chapter in Illinois. Those of us in the peace movement in the United States have an especially urgent obligation to resist militarism and war, for the simple reason that we live in the most warmongering, at least over the last century. The U.S., far more than any other country, has flagrantly disregarded international law, corrupted the United Nations and other bodies of international law, committed or fomented numerous acts of war against dozens of countries, and has now brought us to the brink of nuclear annihilation. But there is a peace movement in this country. You don't hear about us much because the corporate news media ignore us, and because we haven't had many successes in recent years. The military-industrial complex and the imperialists have a stranglehold on our political system, and it is very hard to loosen. But we are trying, and we are continuing to try. One longtime hero of the peace movement in this country was Daniel Ellsberg, the man who helped expose the utterly criminal, deceitful, and immoral nature of the Vietnam War, helped expose the utter insanity of U.S. nuclear war planning, and who continued to labor mightily for the cause of peace for decades until his passing last month. We think it appropriate on this occasion to share the short but powerful open letter to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken that he co-authored and signed just 3 months ago, and the urgent warning that it contains, because this is our message as well. To Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, as individuals working for nuclear disarmament and arms control, we urge the State Department to promote a ceasefire and vigorous diplomacy in Ukraine to prevent a nuclear catastrophe. After a year of combat following the Russian invasion, there is little likelihood of a military victory for either side. The longer the Ukraine war continues, the greater the danger that nuclear weapons will be used, whether on purpose or by accident. The war in Ukraine has created the greatest danger of nuclear conflagration since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Russia and the United States together possess over 90% of the world's operational nuclear weapons. Vladimir Putin and other Russian leaders have said they would use nuclear weapons if absolutely necessary to defend what they consider Russian territory, and announced a plan to deploy nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus. We should not dismiss as a bluff Putin's threat of nuclear war to retain Russian control of Crimea, which is home to ethnic Russians, the site of Russia's naval fleet, and part of Russia for nearly 200 years. On the US side, every president from Harry Truman to Joe Biden has rejected a no first use of nuclear weapons commitment, and many have threatened to use nuclear weapons. In 1950, during the Korean War, President Truman said launching nuclear weapons was under active consideration. During the Vietnam War, President Nixon secretly ordered B-52 nuclear bombers on high alert to pressure the North Vietnamese to surrender. And in 2007, President George W. Bush repeatedly stated, all options are on the table should Iran pursue a nuclear program. Another real danger, however, with so many nuclear weapons on hair trigger alert and a serious breakdown in communications and trust between the US and Russia is an accident, miscalculation, misunderstanding, or any number of possible triggers that could lead to an all-out nuclear war without anyone intending it. There have been at least 13 known cases where false alarms and close calls almost led to nuclear war, and the probability of a cyber attack, computer malfunction, or simple human error increases exponentially under wartime conditions. Military establishments in both Russia and the United States have been striving to make nuclear weapons more and more so-called effective or usable, which also increases the risks. So-called tactical nuclear weapons can be just as deadly as the bombs that killed hundreds of thousands of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And yet there is increasing talk of such weapons being used in a combat situation. And even more ominously, every plausible simulation of nuclear combat indicates that use of tactical nuclear weapons against a nuclear-armed enemy would rapidly devolve into a sequence of devastating retaliations, resulting in billions of human casualties and the onset of protracted nuclear winter. A nuclear war would be the greatest catastrophe humanity has ever experienced. No cause, no principle, no consideration of maintaining or altering a particular power structure can possibly justify risking the future of human and other animal life on this planet. That is why ending the Ukraine war quickly is an existential necessity for all of humanity. Contrary to existing US policy of discouraging or even blocking negotiations, as one mediator, the former Israeli prime minister, described it, the Biden administration should employ its full diplomatic resources to promote peace talks without preconditions between Ukraine and Russia and an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire. Thank you, Daniel Ellsberg, for those wise words.
Going to stop that there. To a wonderful video to try to make up some of our time that we're over. Kathy, do you want to present the next part?
Well, thanks, David. We're now going to turn our attention to North America in Canada and go to Vancouver. And in Vancouver, they've had a no to NATO picket today. And then also, I believe Brad is going to give us an introduction to Tamara Lawrence, who has been passionately campaigning to say no to NATO in many ways. So can we go to Vancouver?
I think we'll have to go to Brad if Barbara is not here. Is Barbara here?
I don't think Barbara is here yet. So Brad, we'd love to go to you and Duncan, please.
Brad, can you unmute, please?
Perhaps we'd better go to our third person from BC, who is Aza. Are you able to play Aza's message, David?
This is the video that
Yes, from
that
Vancouver,
Brad,
yeah.
of Tamara.
No, this is the 1 minute video from Vancouver.
A 1 minute video. Okay, here we go with the 1 minute video.
Hi there, greeting to everybody that's attending from all over the world. This very important initiative today, the 24-hour Peace Wave. My name is Aza Rojbi. I am with Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice here in Canada. I'm calling in live from a Pride event in the Greater Vancouver area. I wanted to add my voice and the voice of all of us at Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice to add to everyone's voice around the world today, demanding no to NATO, demanding yes to peace and no to wars and occupation. We know that the budget of Canada and the budget of a lot of countries around the world, a lot of it is going into NATO, is going into more militarization, is going into more wars and occupation. We know that as people from all over the world, we demand that that money is spent in social services, in housing, in education, in healthcare. So we're adding our voice here from Canada, from Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice, to all of you to say no to NATO, yes to peace, and no to wars and occupation. Hi there, greeting to everybody that's attending from all over the world. It's very important.
Well, thank you for that. And now I believe we might be able to go to Brad. Is that right?
I see that Barbara is in fact here. We just didn't recognize her screen name.
Well, I need to know what her screen name is, please.
It is LGK20.
Barbara, take it away. Barbara, can you unmute, please? I think we're going to need Barbara to unmute.
Okay, all right. I think I've done it. Okay, do you see and hear me then? Or you see the scene?
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, well, thanks for joining in with us today. We're so happy that this peace wave is going on. I've been watching this morning and so delighted with all the preparation that people have done, the art and the music. You should be seeing the surroundings, or do you see my face? You see my face, okay. So we're here on a busy street corner. Just tell me if it's too loud or too, if I'm too loud or too quiet. We're here at a very busy intersection where we can talk to people. So this is a leafleting time. We have a few signs. Now you should be able to see behind me some signs. And this is what we do occasionally. We were in the center of Vancouver last week when a lot of country representatives were meeting for the OSCE, a lot of which were members of NATO. So we were down there doing the same thing with our signs, leaflets, and talking to people. So that's our contribution today. Sorry, nothing is rehearsed for you. I'm going to tell you that we are small factions that are connected with the Canada-wide Peace and Justice Network. And so today we have Just Peace Committee, and we have some of our friends from the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninists. I'm trying to show you pictures. And they're leafleting, they have signs behind me. And what we're really concerned with Canada's part in war and aggression. So our main message is opposing Canada's participation in NATO and its attachment to US foreign policy and US-led war. NATO is an alliance that is aggressive. It's getting more aggressive, militarizing more and more. And this is all about protecting the interests of the very wealthy and keeping US dominating, US and European and countries and Canada in a dominant position, and trying to assert themselves as China and Russia and other countries become more prominent in the world. So I'll just read a little bit of our statement. Okay, so the purpose of the NATO summits is to expand its membership and actions and strategize. The Ukraine war, which the major political parties in Canada all support, is a pretext by which to mobilize and expand aggression against nations that impede US domination defeat liberation struggles and tendencies towards socialism, and defend markets and supply chains, especially weapons and energy, to protect and benefit the ruling wealthy minorities of its member and allied countries. NATO has declared Russia and China to be its main enemies, and so has been encircling them, disseminating massive disinformation and hate, conspiring with their neighbors, engaging in more threats and war games, implementing economic coercion against their people, and using proxies such as Ukraine to divert their resources and cause distress and alarm. Canada is participating wholeheartedly in these efforts, spreading its own provocative propaganda, supplying Ukraine, complying with the sanctions and creating its own sanctions, aiding the war profiteers, expanding its own military forces and budget, and engaging in NATO and other US military maneuvers around the world. In March 2023, Brown University study released some data calculating that the total loss of human life, military and civilian, by US wars in the post-11 years has been 4.5 million people. Poor people suffer the most. 3.6 million civilians have died from war-related diseases, loss of food, water, and basic infrastructure, environmental damage, and related violence. This all must stop. Canada must stop contributing materials, funds, and lives towards this destruction. But Canada is increasing its military budget, taking away from social development in Canada. And instead of addressing unemployment and housing problems, it's committed to more war. The total Government of Canada military expenditures will increase from 36.3 billion in the 2022-23 fiscal year to approximately 51 billion in 26-27 years. The corresponding increase in the share of military expenditure to GDP is from 1.33% this year, and they intend to increase it to about 1.6 in the 26-27 period, according to the Parliamentary Budget Office. So Canada's defense spending will increase to 59 billion over the next decades. Its trade in military-related supplies is rising too. It has 40 military bases within Canada. US and UK have been using the Suffield base. And Canada is planning to develop the North American Aerospace Defense Command, particularly the Arctic, in partnership with the US. So this is setting us up for more violations of Canadian sovereignty, where the US will consider this territory part of its own. So we definitely oppose that. Also, Canada is committed to buying 88 F-35 fighter jets. And these jets, you may have heard, are really problematic. They're full of flaws and unsafe. The initial cost of 39 billion to buy a few of them, which will likely turn into 70 billion given all the maintenance that's required. And and this is all taxpayers' dollars. And they want to buy more armed drones, surveillance, surveillance aircraft and naval vessels. And it wants to buy P-8 surveillance aircraft and related equipment. Canada is quite involved in Europe. It occupies bases such as Camp Adazi in Latvia. The Department of Defense says Canada has provided over $1 billion to Ukraine since February 2022. The Canadian mission in Ukraine, which is called Operation Unifier, began in 2015 and was extended to 2025. It has trained 36,000 Ukrainian troops and sent 300 Canadian personnel, CAF personnel, to Ukraine. And this year it's supplying $1.5 billion worth of weaponry, plus $6.5 billion directly to the well-recognized fascist and very corrupt Ukraine state. So we condemn these involvements and we want Canada to stop that. Meanwhile, they're also involved in the Pacific, all the partnerships with US, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and pushing hard against China and NATO, helping NATO to set up in Asia. So it's very active in that part, which could prepare the stage for a third world war, and including nuclear war, as the previous speakers have pointed out. So now I'm going to go, you can see we're having conversations with some of our participants. I'm going to turn you over to Joseph to speak.
Hello.
Barbara, we're very pressed for time, so if Joseph could be brief, I'm very sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. We're just here in Ontario, in Vancouver, because of the shameless criminal doing of US, Canada, NATO, France. They're fighting to the last Ukrainian, and they're escalating the war. So we want to adamantly refuse NATO's command to hold they're refusing to hold negotiations for peace, and they're running roughshod over the opinion of the peoples of the majority of the country of the world. And this war has to stop. We should negotiate a peace deal now, and we want to make Canada a zone for peace, not a bum boy for the US imperialists.
Thanks
Thank you,
very much,
Joseph.
Joseph. So do we have any more time?
We do not. I really, really wish we did. Thank you so much.
We're very happy that you're able to make us a part of this today. So thanks. Good luck.
We are very happy to. Thank you so much. I think
recording. Yeah.
we can now invite Brad to join us.
Hello, everyone from sunny Nanaimo. I hope you can hear me okay. My name is Brad Langard. I'm from the Freedom from War Coalition in the Cowichan Valley and Nanaimo and the Mid-Island. We partner with groups on Vancouver Island, like the Vancouver Island Peace Council, the Victoria Peace Coalition, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and other peace organizations or people's groups that are very concerned about what is happening in our world. The Freedom from War Coalition comprises people and community groups from a broad cross-section of backgrounds on Vancouver Island. As people of peace, we oppose the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We call for an immediate ceasefire between all involved parties, be they Russian, NATO, or foreign mercenaries, so that peace negotiations may take place and loss of life may be stemmed. The current crisis in Ukraine has heightened our recognition of the necessity to stand for peace wherever superpowers such as the US and their alliances such as NATO have waged war. We oppose Canada's participation in such wars. As people of peace, we seek to build popular opposition to a ballooning Canadian military budget. The military budget diverts money from public services, social housing, clean drinking water, Indigenous self-determination, and carbon neutrality in favor of enriching the owners of Canada's war industry. So we seek to build awareness of and opposition to an economy based on the necessity for war. We call upon the people to reject the war propaganda and outright lies spread by both sides endorsing war as a path to peace. And we thank our friends in World Beyond War for giving us this opportunity to talk to our fellow anti-war campaigners. And then we're going to stream a video of our broadcast of Tamara Lorenz, who came to Nanaimo 2 weeks ago and did a talk for us. The first 10 minutes of the video, she speaks about how the people of our own communities is reflected, how we treat the people of our own communities is reflected in how we treat people abroad, which I think is a very important message. Well, I'll let her speak for herself. And then whoever's in charge of the video, just go ahead. Thank you for your time.
So tonight I'm going to share with you a few highlights from my recent trip to Vienna to attend the International Summit for Peace in Ukraine, and a few highlights from this month-long trip that I did last November from Egypt, Russia, Finland, Latvia, Poland, and Romania. And I'm going to intersperse these trips with some more information about this problem of militarism. So the title of the talk is Making Space for Peace, addressing this Russia-Ukraine war. It is so important for us to make space for peace because we are facing a poverty crisis and a climate emergency. It's also really important for us to get more active and to build up the peace movement in Canada. And by the end of my presentation, you'll be impressed even more why this is so urgent for us to get more active, really roll up our sleeves and deal with this issue. So you have homeless encampments here in Nanaimo. There are homeless encampments all across the country. In my community of Kitchener-Waterloo, there are 4 homeless encampments. This is a picture of the homeless encampment near where I live. On Tuesday of this week, I was in Vancouver and I did a 3-hour walk with drug policy and rehabilitation advocate Guy Felicella through the downtown east side to learn more about the crisis there, the opioid crisis, the poverty crisis, the homelessness crisis, and it is unbelievable. 7,500 people who are suffering with immense trauma, trapped in a drug crisis, in a poverty crisis, and in a housing crisis. It is really a form of violence. How we in Canada treat the most vulnerable, traumatized people in our community is directly linked to how we treat people in other countries, the violence of our foreign policy. Not only are we dealing with this poverty crisis, but we're all being impacted by this horrendous climate emergency. So there are 400 forest fires still raging across the country, from British Columbia to Saskatchewan, Alberta, Northern Ontario where I live, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. Many of them are out of control. The headlines a week and a half ago are millions of Canadians will face extreme fire danger this summer. This is an immediate security challenge for all of us. This is the #1 threat that we are facing, is catastrophic climate change. This is a headline from British Columbia. BC is burning through its wildfire budget well before the season even peaks. $200 million have been allocated by the province to deal with the forest fires, but they've already gone through the budget and we're only at June. We've had more forest fires in the past 2 months than we have in the past 2 years in Canada. And look at this statistic from the BC Wildfire Service. Over the past 3 decades, we've gone from an average of 300,000 hectares burning in this province annually to 2 million hectares of forest burning. This is climate-induced natural disasters. And we don't have enough resources to deal with these crises. In Alberta, while I was in Vienna, 100 forest fires burning, 30 of them out of control, thousands of people evacuated, hundreds of homes burned down. The same thing happening in Nova Scotia, the smoke blanketing the cities. In fact, it got so bad it was going down through the eastern seaboard. The headlines around the world showed orange smoke haze across Calgary and in New York City. At the same time that these forest fires were burning out of control in Alberta, the Canadian military was conducting its largest live fire weapons training in Wainwright Military Base, very close to Calgary. I was just in Calgary and you could still smell the smoke in the air. Remember, for 3 days, people in Calgary could barely go out of their homes and walk their dog and exercise. And this is what our military was doing at the exact same time. So really look carefully at this picture. The live fire, the shooting, the shelling, the bombing. Look at the compaction of the soil. These tanks that they're training on, these Leopard tanks, the ones that we've sent to Ukraine, compact the soil, they damage the forests. They are making it more difficult for our communities to deal with the climate emergency, destroying our forests that try to absorb carbon. And Alberta, of course, didn't have enough resources to tackle the climate emergency. They had to fly in thousands of firefighters to come and help. And we've known this. We've known from the climate science that climate-induced natural disasters like forest fires, flooding, the heat dome, heat waves are going to get worse because we are not rapidly reducing climate emissions. But instead, in January of this year, our Defense Minister, Anita Anand, announced that Canada is going to buy a new fleet of fossil fuel-powered fighter jets, the F-35 fighter jets, for 88 of them for $70 billion over the next decade, which will lock us into 30 decades of carbon-intensive militarism, exacerbating the climate emergency. And also these fighter jets are for killing people and for destroying other countries. So this is the second most expensive procurement in Canadian history, and instead of spending our precious tax dollars on investing in the climate emergency, helping communities adapt and become more resilient, we are investing in new warplanes. So, in March of this year, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released their 6th assessment report. So there is an 80-page summary report and then a 30-page report for policymakers. I really want to urge you to have a look at this report and bring a copy to your member of parliament. The theme of the report is urgent climate action can secure a livable future for all. The most important operative adjective here is a livable future for all. I want to show you a couple of graphs from this important report. The first one is this graph. Now look at the first arrow here at the bottom, and you can see global temperature change. This is the scale. At 0 degrees, it's white, and as it gets hotter to 4 degrees, it becomes more red, okay? So this is the scale that we're on right now. Where the red arrow is at the top is at 1.1 degrees of global mean temperature rise. This is where we are currently in 2023, okay? According to the IPCC scientists, with a high level of confidence, very high to high level of confidence, that at the current emissions rate, over the next 70 years, we are on track to be at 3 to 4 degrees of warming. Okay.
I wish we could continue, but we can share that video with everyone. Kathy, do you want to introduce our next section here?
Okay, thank you. Our next section is going to move to a group that's called Earthlings Duo. And Sharon and Michael are described as people with a passionate, harmonious voice, both singing and also feeling and speaking for peace. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to knowing what it is that you most want us to understand today about saying no to NATO and working for peace. Thank you.
I have chosen this time and this place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds, and the truth is too rarely perceived. Yet it is the most important topic on earth. peace.
I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living. Genuine peace, the kind that enables people and nations to grow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Orcas Island. The words and music you just heard are from John F. Kennedy's not so well known 1963 peace speech at American University. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes with the words JFK spoke and with composer Sharon Abreu's music. Sharon's new musical setting of Kennedy's speech, called Peace for All Time, had its first performance right here on Orcas Island on June 8th. Sharon wrote Peace for All Time to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Kennedy's speech. And now let's hear from Sharon Abreu.
Thank you so much, Kellen. It's really a great honor to be part of this peace wave. And I wanted to share this piece because this year is the 60th anniversary of JFK's peace speech, which was actually a commencement address that he delivered at American University on June 10th, 1963. And very sadly, it is also the 60th anniversary this year of JFK's assassination. So it seemed like a really good time to highlight this particular speech, especially in light of what's going on in the world right now, and particularly between the United States, Ukraine, and Russia. So about a year and a half ago, I joined an online group called the JFK Peace Speech Committee, which is sort of an offshoot of Massachusetts Peace Action. And that's when this speech first came to my attention. I've been a peace activist, educator for a long time, and I was like, wow, how come I didn't know about this speech? So I wanted to write something that would really highlight it. A song didn't seem sufficient. A song cycle didn't really seem sufficient either. It seemed like it needed many voices. And this choral piece, Peace for All Time, is the result. And now we're going to hear another excerpt, and then we'll hear some more excerpts as we go along from the premiere of Peace for All Time on June 8th of this year. So I thought I would just introduce my fellow conspirators here. We have, actually you can't see, right outside of the picture here is Michael Hurwitz, the other half of the Earthlings duo, who is working on the Zoom for us right now. And we also have Tom Baldwin and Kellen Beek and Nels Mogelson, all of whom were involved in the premiere performance of Peace for All Time on June 8th. And I thought it would be nice for us to intersperse the video excerpts with some live conversation about what this text means to us. And the piece we just heard, which deals with the threat of nuclear war and the incredible amount of money being spent on these weapons of mass destruction. You know, where are we now in the context of where were we 60 years ago? Anybody have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, I would say that I am concerned, deeply concerned, that perhaps the relevance is even greater today than it was when JFK gave the speech. The passage of time has sort of perhaps dulled the memory of what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Not that I was here at that time, but I have certainly heard a lot about it. Also, positions have been hardened, and so the likelihood of a mistake has become even greater.
And Sharon, when we began rehearsing your piece, the words of Kennedy's speech, which are the lyrics that we sang, are more, they almost seem more powerful and more important and relevant today than they were in 1963. Although, you know, who can say? Like, I was so small in 1963, I barely remember. But it is very powerful.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to have another excerpt now, and this will be, it is sad to realize the extent of the gulf between us.
It's sad to realize the extent of the gulf between us. It is also appalling to the American people not to fall into the same trap as the Soviets, not to see only a distorted and desperate view of the other side, not to see conflicts as inevitable, a combination as impossible, and communication as nothing more than an exchange of threats.
We're going to hear a little excerpt from the John F. Kennedy peace speech now in just a moment.
And even in the Cold War, which brings burdens and dangers to so many countries, including this nation's closest allies, our two countries bear the heaviest burdens. For we are both devoting massive sums of money to weapons that could be better devoted to combat ignorance, poverty, and disease. We are both caught up in a vicious and
Which means burden
so just to take a moment to reflect on what we just heard there, I'm curious if anybody has anything they want to say. I mean, I can talk forever about this stuff, but if anybody else has anything they would like to say about these heaviest burdens and the fact that we're not focusing on needs at home.
Yeah, we're not, and so many things that JFK said resonate for us today, and I wasn't aware of the speech actually until you wrote the piece. So we should all thank you for doing that. I have a question for you. When you tried to put his words to music, how well did that? What were the challenges?
The main thing I did first was I just read the speech out loud over and over and over again. And then I started to identify some places where, ooh, that has a really nice rhythm. If I were going to sing that, what would the rhythm be? And after working out the rhythm for all of these phrases, it was, what kind of music wants to come through each one of these phrases?
Beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And then we're going to play another excerpt. We are both caught up in a vicious and dangerous cycle.
Suspicion breeds suspicion, and weapons beget weapons. We have a mutually deep interest in a just and genuine peace. A just and genuine peace. And in halting the arms race. So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also see our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved.
We want to hear that, but not yet. Okay, so I'm just curious if anybody has anything you'd like to say about this concept of our common interests as human beings on this planet.
We just started to hear a little of your music. Like to hear more of the strings and French horn. No, we don't pay so much as much attention to the planet as we should. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, and like I heard the person who's speaking in the segment before we started on the live stream talking about the climate crisis, and I've been doing climate change education also for over 20 years, and you cannot separate, in my mind, I cannot separate the climate crisis from the problem of the lack of peace in our world. They're so very much connected. Okay, let's see, I think we have another excerpt coming up here. Yes. We must persevere in the search for peace.
We must persevere in the search for peace, in a world that constructive changes, with very rich solutions that now seem beyond us. What a
anybody have anything they'd like to say about that?
I love the French horn. Thank you, Nels.
Nels Moggelson on French horn. Thank you, yay.
So one thing I would add to that is that the concern about nuclear war is, I feel, far greater today than it was then. If you look at the total number of countries that have nuclear weapons today, in addition to modern day Russia, there's France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and now North Korea. And the issue of being able to talk to people on a regular and ongoing basis is vital. And that was contained in Kennedy's speech.
I think one of the things that really comes up for me in this is, how often does fear get us more of what we don't want? And this fear of violence directed at us here in the United States, at least to some degree, is causing us to kind of hyper react to that and have just I don't know, it seems to me an insane number of weapons to destroy the world 1,000 times over. Do we really need that? And how can we work with people? How can we evolve as a human spirit to not need this?
Well, and fear is the most powerful weapon of authoritarian governments.
That
which is certainly on the rise now, even more so than when Kennedy was giving his speech.
Yeah, well, it makes one wonder what this country would be like, what the world would be like had Kennedy not been assassinated. Got the next excerpt ready there?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, this is a hopeful segment, and it's also a very sobering segment.
Sure. Tom, I always wonder how they hit those high notes, though.
Yes,
that's for another Zoom.
Oh, yeah. Just speaking here from the basics.
Yes.
Yeah, just to think about the hope of building new institutions of peace to take the place of arms, which reminds me of the concept of a peace room, which is at least as important as a war room. And it's a room, it's a physical room, but not necessarily a physical room. It extends beyond a physical room, where people can talk and share their stories and get to know each other and just really connect on a level like we don't normally get to do.
And in all seriousness, the message and the feeling of hope that section that we just heard lends to the whole emotion of the piece is so important. And I know that we're going to try to save time for you and Mike to sing another song
at the end
has that same feeling. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Okay, and our next excerpt is going to be, let us examine our attitude toward peace and freedom here at home.
Let us examine our attitude toward peace and freedom here at home. Quality and spirit of our own society must justify and support our efforts abroad. We must show it.
back to a time when the quality and spirit of our own society here in this country could be the way that Kennedy described it.
Yeah. Is it a matter of going back or is it a matter of going forward? Yeah, I know we tend to think of the good old days, but that wasn't the good old days for all Americans, you know, and I really appreciate that we had the civil rights movement, we have more civil rights across the board for everyone than we had, but we still have a long way to go.
Well, now we have the Roberts Court.
Oh, yes. All right, we have another excerpt coming up. Peace and freedom walk together.
Peace and freedom walk together, and is not peace a right of human lives, a right to live our lives with the fear of devastation, the right to breathe air as nature provided it, and the right of our future generations.
Yes, how about that? How well expressed is that? It seems ahead of its time in a way.
I was just saying to Tom, we should not ignore or not forget to mention that great string section that was just highlighted.
Yes, and I thank you for that because, you know, I'm not really focusing so much on the music today, although the music, I hope it works for people the way it works for me, you know, that it enhances the words. It gives us time to spend with the words and really kind of highlights them rather than just being spoken line after line. We did have some wonderful players here. We had some excellent string players here. One who lives on Orcas Island, one who is part-time on Orcas Island and is also the artistic director of the Orcas Island Chamber Music Festival, and one who came over on the ferry from one of our neighboring islands, which, if you know the San Juan Islands ferry system, you know that is quite a challenge these days. So anyway, thank you for pointing that out.
Well, that's how we keep all the musicians here. You know, we like to get them here and keep them.
Whoops, there's no ferry running back tonight, so sorry, right? Okay, and our next excerpt is going to be another one that I think is just so appropriate for right now.
This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression. We shall be prepared if others wishes. We shall be alert to try to stop it, and we shall also do our part to build a world of peace, where the weak are saved and the strong are just.
Thank you so much for being on the Peace Wave with us today. And I hope you've enjoyed this piece, Peace for All Time. Feel free to get in touch with us here on Orcas Island, and we'd love to connect with anybody anywhere. So we're going to do a song just to end up an actual live song. You can see us okay, I think.
And I'll just mention I put a link in the chat where you can get to the full video of this whole performance as well as, you know, some other things.
Thank you. Yeah. And thanks so much to World Beyond War for organizing this. We love World Beyond War, very important organization. Please support them. And here's a song called The Peace Room. When the wars have left us broken,
in a world of greed and fear. When we've reached our end and we have to mend, there's a place and it's right here for peace to heal our spirits. Oh yes, we'll be there soon. Living place, healing space, step inside. Peace room. Its function is to welcome the emergent beings of Earth. It's space to safely welcome a planetary birth. So clearly in my vision, I feel its resonance, a field in which we all are one. If we build it, they will come. In the peace room, there's room for all. We share our stories, hear our call. Creativity's exchanged. No one can enter and not feel changed. Its walls extend beyond our sight to a field of endless light, where deepest, highest aspirations bloom. Step inside. Peace room. Through this great vision that we share, we can replicate it anywhere. It resonates through every land in a language we all understand. Our voices will reverberate, shift frequencies, and soon the new millennium will start here inside the peace room. In the peace room, there's room for all. We share our stories, hear our call. Creativity's exchanged. No one can enter and not feel changed. Its walls extend beyond our sight to a field of endless flight, where deepest, highest aspirations bloom. Step inside. Step inside. Peace room. Come join us there.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Well, how can we thank you enough? That was a simply wonderful, wonderful presentation, and it's
Thank you.
very exciting to see how creative you can be with those words that are so needed now. And so I think this is going to conclude this section of the Peace Wave. The International Peace Bureau and World Beyond War are so pleased to welcome everybody who has joined, and we certainly look forward to sharing this far and wide. David, could we turn it back to you?
Well, I believe we're going to Asheville, North Carolina at this point in time with a friend of ours named Ken Jones. So why don't we,
I'm sorry.
quite all right, why don't we turn it to Ken?
Thanks, Ken.
We're going to face this way. How do I turn it around? We don't have any video, Ken. That's what I. We're working on it.
When Ken is able to turn on his video and get things working, we're going to be in Asheville, North Carolina, to close out this section.
Sorry, y'all. We're having a little technical difficulty here.
But maybe we can also add that Ken and Melody are co-founders of the War Industrials Industrialist Resistance Network. And in Asheville, North Carolina, Raytheon acquired a Pratt Whitney facility, and the building is now apace to create yet another institution of the military industrial complex right there in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. So folks there have been on street corners and processing right on up to the new facility under construction, and then also organizing brilliant webinars to bring lots of people together. So thanks, Ken.
We've got audio. Have we got video?
We're working on it. We can't get our video to work. Whoop.
Oh, man. Is the audio working?
Yeah, I think I just lost Zoom.
We hear you. We don't see you.
Right, I know. Tap that right there. We had to change phones, so now we're like a little discombobulated.
Trying to get our camera on.
Well, we can remind people once again, as I've been announcing throughout the day today, that President Biden has said that next year, a year from tomorrow, July 9th, NATO will be meeting in Washington, D.C. So maybe Kathy and Ken and many of us will be together in person in one place next year. There we go.
You see us? Okay, we're ready, I think. Woohoo!
Melody, thank you.
Hi, everybody around the world. We're here in Asheville, North Carolina. We have a good crew out here. We have maybe 20, 25 people. And this is being sponsored by our local peace activist group. We're called Reject Raytheon, because Raytheon is building a plant here in Asheville, jet engine plant for fighter jets. And we've been opposing it for over 2 years. Anyway, we have a program for you. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We're going to start off with a song by our local women's chorus, Woman's Song. Woo!
Salam shalom, peace, 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 salam shalom. Salam shalom, salam shalom, salam
Hey, it's Woman's Song here in Asheville, North Carolina. Now we have a statement from Reject Raytheon. We have two people who are going to read our statement to you. Then we'll have a couple more songs. First person is Ann Craig.
We are a group of peacemakers and activists here in Asheville, North Carolina, in the United States.
We see ourselves as world citizens, and we raise our voices for a world free of war, militarism, and nuclear weapons. We understand that we will never be able to address the climate emergency or to address the many injustices and inequities in our society until we stop investing in the war industry and instead put our money into the material, social, and emotional needs of people. While peace may be fostered by individuals and groups of people, we know that peace must also be the priority of governments. Locally, we have been opposing the construction of jet engine plant in Asheville owned by Pratt & Whitney, a division of Raytheon Technologies, now called RTX, the second largest war corporation in the world. This plant will be making engine components for U.S. fighter jets, including the F-35, which is capable of carrying nuclear weapons. It will soon be making huge profits from war making around the world. When your product is weaponry, your marketing plan is to generate war. We don't want this kind of death-dealing economy here. We know we can create more jobs by investing in education, healthcare, and sustainable energy. We are calling for the conversion of the Pratt & Whitney plant from making war machines to making machines like windmills or high-speed rail transportation. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to turn this war economy around. Thank you, Ann Craig. Now we have another reader to finish our statement right over here, Ellie, please.
We owe it to our brothers and our sisters around the world to end imperial wars right now. We call on the US and NATO to stop funding its proxy war in Ukraine against Russia and seek a negotiated peace now. We also implore that our country and NATO stop preparing for war in China. To the leaders of the US, we say, end the arms race. Close our 800 foreign military bases. And spend money, our money, on the well-being of people rather than lining the pockets of war profiteers and banks. Stop supporting and arming the murderous Israeli occupation of Palestine. End all sanctions, including the malicious 60-year blockade of Cuba. And above all, abolish nuclear weapons. Sign the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We will continue our work as peacemakers here in Asheville with the hope that comes from each one of us and from all of you around the world who are also working for peace and justice. We are not alone. The world depends on us. May our efforts succeed and may peace prevail on earth. I personally would like to beg forgiveness from all the mothers of the world, from those in other countries who have lost their children in bloody conflicts, fueled by my tax dollars, and mothers in this country who have lost their children to drugs and violence and poverty. May this immoral government that actively contributes to the senseless death of children all over the world find the strength to forego greed and embrace peace. May there be peace on earth, and may it begin with us. Us, spelled with a capital U-S. We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Forward. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Work for peace together. Work for peace together. Work for peace together. Never turning back. Never turning back. Forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Never turning back. Never turning back. Be the change we want to see in the world. Be the change we want to see in the world. Be the change we want to see in the world. And change will come to you. Everyone. Be the change we want to see in the world. Be the change we want to see in the world. Be the change we want to see in the world. And change will come to you. The voice. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. And change will come to you. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light we want to shine in the world. Be the light we want to shine in the world. And change will come to you. Be the peace you want to feel in the world. Be the peace you want to feel in the world. Be the peace you want to feel in the world. And peace will come to you. And peace will come to you. And peace will come to you.
Woman's song from Asheville, North Carolina. Does anybody know what time it is? Time for peace in this world. Quarter till. I'm going to pass this over to my partner here, Melody Shank.
Can you guys see and hear us okay?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes? Okay, good. All right.
All right, folks. We're going to go for a little march here. We got another few minutes while we're still on the air, and we're going to show our international audience a little bit of Asheville as we walk through with our sign. So what we're going to do is put this banner, the banner that says Peace Wave, no to militarization, no to cooperation. We're going to put that right in front, and then we're going to walk down around Pack Square and back again. And I'm going to lead us in a few chants along the way. And we hope our international audience appreciates this. So, all right, let's walk this way, folks. Hand it to me. I gotta go forward. Hold up a second, Wolfie. Just hold up a second. All right, everybody, let's have a walk. Yeah, let's go. What do we want? Peace. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Peace. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Peace. When do we want it? Now. Every time you guys pay taxes, you are funding this war.
We know it. We know it. We know it. Slow down, you guys. Oh, he's behind you.
One, two, three, four. Stop the funding for the war. 1, 2, 7, 8. Stop the funding. Negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop the funding for the war. 5, 6, 7, 8. No more arms. Negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop the funding for the war. 5, 6, 7, 8. No more arms. Negotiate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop the funding for the war. 5, 6, 7, 8. No more arms. Negotiate.
What you see in front of us is the city hall and our county courthouse. And this evening we have something that happens all summer long. We're going to walk around the Shindig on the Green, which is a mountain music affair. It starts in there. People are just gathering for it. So we're going to walk around while people are sitting.
Nuclear weapons have got to go got to go.
Okay, well, we can go around right now. They're not having music yet.
Park. Cluster Bob said got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Cluster Bob said got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Cluster Bob said got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Cluster Bob said got to go.
You're not gonna chant, right? We're just walking silently. We're walking silently.
When we go over to where the music is playing, we're going to be quiet.
Yeah, or, you know, it's a nonprofit, are we allowed? Yeah, I didn't know if we were allowed.
We're not allowed to be partisan, which means, I mean, you can step out if you want to.
No,
I mean,
I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
Let's turn it around. Yeah, face it that way. No, I don't think so. Yes, yes, my younger daughter.
Hey, Joe. It's upside down. The sign's upside down.
No, I don't know. Well, she's not allowed to be in the park.
Yeah, and this is a big deal, so probably didn't want to risk it. Yeah, I'm on the committee to help them.
Yeah, she told us.
Oh.
I'm behind the crowd here.
Asheville friends, are we wrapping up?
We're still walking. If you want to wrap us up, that would be fine. We're just going to walk around this back of the stage of the shindig on the green. And you have another view of the city hall. But you can wrap up if you'd like. We're happy to extend our time to and to show you a little bit of Asheville. And we're certainly glad to have been a part of the Peace Wave for the second year. And yeah, I guess we can wrap up and move on to the next place in the world.
We are very grateful for your excellent contributions for 2 years. Kathy, did you want to say anything?
Ken, you want to say anything? We're going to wrap
Well,
up.
just
Hi,
to say,
everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all. We're walking around this event here that happens in Asheville, Shindig on the Green. People are having music and everything like that. So we're doing a circle around them. But, you know, we're just trying to make it visible to people, what's happening in the world and our cry for peace. So thanks for letting us be part of this international event. And I guess this is it for us, right?
Yeah.
So
thanks.
So peace to y'all. Carry on, everybody.
thank you, Ken and Melody, and everybody who sang for us and inspired us with your wonderful signage as well. You know, the authenticity of what you're saying isn't lost on us. We're mindful of how very, very hard you've been working in Asheville and beyond to confront militarism. And just one more echo for people to keep in mind that President Biden has announced that July 9th of 2024, NATO will be in Washington, D.C. So we have a whole year ahead of us to amplify this voice that says no to NATO. So back to you, David. Thanks so much, everybody who's been with us during this segment.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. We're wrapping up 5 parts of the Peace Wave and moving on to part 6 in just a couple of minutes. Let me see if I can actually move us on here. And part 6, we will be moving out into the Pacific Ocean. We're going west. Before we do that, we're going to stop the recording and restart it, and stop the streaming to social media channels and restart it. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, please find the new stream momentarily as we start with part 6. But let me do that right now. Stopping the recording.